Okay, so listen to this.
An angry lizard.
Got to make an impression, darling.
So, tell me, what makes Queen any different from all of the other wannabe rock stars that I meet?
Tell you what it is, Mr. Reed. We're four misfits who don't belong together. They're playing for other misfits. You're the outcast right at the back of the room. We're pretty sure they don't belong either. We belong to them.
So now the family name's not good enough for you.
Changed it legally. No looking back. We want to do something different. You don't make decisions for the band.
Your life is going to be very difficult.
My family.
So, any thoughts? Here's a way that we learn some of these concepts as you see them in other people, so that as you are leading or coaching, you have an idea of what's driving the behavior. And you will interact with someone with, say, attachment quite differently than you do someone with integration. Someone that needs more connection, you'll do more attuning, whereas in integration, they have a tough time failing. You help them share about vulnerabilities and you draw close. So, Sally, integration is part of it because he never was good enough for his father. Separation, you're right. If you watch the movie, it was tough for him to be alone. And there's one other one that I think you will have to see the movie to see. And Lori, you kind of picked that out. Yeah, in the lyrics, Nicole, you'll be able to see some of the theme that was so key to him. A lot of the songs are about love and connection and being hurt if the love isn't there. And so that's where that attachment, that he really was so good with the audience, because that was one of the main ways that he got his attachment. In the beginning, it was with his first wife, and that was a huge thing for him. But then as that broke up, then he drugs and alcohol and sex. And then finally, in the end, things began to come around for him. And really the mismatching experience was when his father hugged him and was proud of him. And that was really key. So, yeah, you're my best friend, somebody to love. So you'll just see those themes go through and through. As you get good in picking them up with people who have different challenges that you're working with, it will help you know where to go. So, okay, so who has some other questions? Let's see. Tracy and Rebecca, why don't we get you up here? Well, wait a second. John's going to talk about get your feedback on books, and then we'll get you up here.
He's got it. We're queued on the books.
Okay, good.
All right, John will be back in a moment.
Hey, Clark, do you remember that one layout, Clark?
Which
Remember
one?
the one layout that said "Dare to Lead"? Did you did you put these on there, or I can't find it?
Dare to lead.
Yes.
It could have been I messed it up when I was redoing layouts.
Okay, that's okay. I was trying to think if it's hidden someplace, so I'm good. We're good. I don't have time to do it anyway, so I was just curious. That's all.
Okay, yeah, I'll put your good night at the very end.
Okay. Okay, Jeff, that's great. We'll put you on. Yeah, Brene Brown just came out with a book called Dare to Lead. For me, the beginning part was a little bit confusing, but then it just started to just connect in some really cool ways. So you may like it from the beginning on. If you don't, hang in there. And it's some really good stuff. So take a look at that. So keep typing in if you have a question. So we have Tracy, Rebecca, Jeff, Lori, Snyder, are you out there? I don't see you unless you're underneath a different name. I want to get you on. You had a question that I thought you emailed me that would be good. So, yes, you do, Tracy.
Hey guys.
Hey there, brother.
Scott, how did it go with the guitar stuff and Bohemian Rhapsody and all that? Everybody get it?
Yes.
Everybody understand it?
Yep. They actually saw several different character structures besides attachment, some separation, and then the integration of not being good enough for his father. So
I got to see it. It's #1 in the world right now.
yeah.
And, you know, the owner of the studio here, Clark, and me are big Queen fans, and so got to do it.
Yep. It's like sitting in a rock concert. So it's great.
All right. Okay, guys. Hope you enjoyed Wayne. I sure did. I've always gotten a lot out of his content, and he loves teaching. As you can tell, he loves the teaching and training process. As I mentioned, like you guys, feedback, and this is also a bit for your benefit, because when we get to know you guys here in the Institute, a lot of you guys have a book in you, or a video in you, or a video series, or blogs, or website thoughts, or whatever. And I want to really challenge you, if you can feel that kind of, I've got a message, I have content, and I feel something that'll make the world a better place, I want to challenge you to kind of think about it. I didn't start to write a book until somebody asked me to write a book. He said, I think you got a book in you. And now 35 later, he was right. But it took somebody else, so I'm that guy for you. And it's a wonderful process. As you know, since kickoff day, my book, which now has a title, is about, my newest book is about kind of like everything we teach here at the Institute, because Scott and other really good friends have been saying, you got to get this in the book. I mean, this is what we're teaching. You got to have, it's sort of like our business card, and it's going to be your business card when you get out. Remember, if you're a good fit for TLG and TLG is a good fit for you, that's like what Wayne went through, we want to interview you when you graduate and talk to you and see who works for who, because we would love to partner with you guys. And so the book has 3 aspects to it. The first is the Path to Growth tree: fruit, and the trunk and the root system and all that whole Luke 13 that everything's built on that you see the diagram. Part 2 is the 22 relational needs and how we're supposed to give and receive those from each other, just like you give and receive calcium and iron and all sorts of things to stay healthy and fight disease. And then the third part is the 7 C's of categories of relationship. Coaches and comrades and the good things we're supposed to have, as well as at the bottom of the pile, contaminants and chronics, and how to do this. So it's sort of like, here's God's plan, here's how you get healthy and stay healthy and help other people stay healthy, and then here's the people to get it from, and here's the people to watch out for. So now that we have a title, that's now, in cement, people fuel. And you can see down there at the bottom, it says how energy from relationships. I'm going to change that from can to will. I think will has more promise. How energy from relationships will transform your life, love, and leadership. So it's a leadership book and it's a personal growth book at the same time, which is a lot of my books I write because of my background of those hybrids between leadership and self-help or leadership and personal growth. So as you can see, there's a little icon there between the gas gauge and all that cool stuff. I'm not going to give you a bias one way or the other, but here's where I need your help. We're going to show you this one and the second one, and then the third one was, I don't like either one of them. They both make me want to throw up, and that's fine too. I've got no ego in this game. So there's the first one, and then take a look at that. And then, Clark, can we show the second one too? If we can side by side them.
Well, we can
be
do this.
Oh, okay. Parallel. There's a second one, and it's blue. And instead of the gauge, the metaphor is more of the energy that comes from relationships in the coffee cup and that sort of thing. Same words, same verbiage. Dr. John Townsend, people fuel, how energy from relationships will transform your life, love, and leadership. Oh, thanks, Clark. You're toggling back and forth. That's it. I don't want to take our time with feedback because I want it to be your time more than mine, but certainly with the chat room, you guys are very verbal human beings, so just chat away and Scott will tell me what you're saying. And again, I like 1 because of X. I like 2 because of X. Somebody is psychotic and needs medication. There is no, I don't like either one of them. And I got no dog in the hunt. I want something that, the thing to remember, and I think I mentioned this at kickoff, the neuroscience of titling is the brain takes 3 seconds from the time the person's on Amazon scrolling around or on Lifeway Books or at Barnes & Noble to see an intriguing cover and title to go, that might be worth opening up. 3 seconds. And if you don't grab them in 3 seconds, they just move on. Remember, when you're already part of the family, and so you understand this stuff. You can look at people fuel and go, I know exactly what that means. God made us to be fuel for each other. John Q. Public and Sally Q. Public do not know that. So don't think about us. We get it, and don't kind of come from within the family. Think, my neighbor, my friend, somebody at work, which one would they be attracted to and say, I want this? We find that women forgive men for a book that's not really, really feminine enough. No. Women forgive men for the book that might be a masculine feel. Women do not forgive women, unfortunately, for a book that's more the feminine feel. I think women are more broader and more accepting of differences than men are. That's been my experience in titling and publishing. But let us know, and thank you, and get your own book out there. I want to learn something from you one day. Okay, Scott, that's all I got, except for let's do some more questions and all that good stuff.
Tracy and Rebecca are getting on, and then Jeff is going to get on after them. So hopefully they're in La La Land. Oh, you know why they're not getting on? They got unenabled. That's why. Okay, second. Okay, Tracy, you're good. And Rebecca.
Scott, this is the only time that I will not chastise you for enabling. Sometimes in life we do need to enable others.
Well, I get it out of my system this way, so that in these other relationships I don't. So it's very therapeutic for me. Thank you very much.
Yes. Yeah, it's compensatory. I love it. All righty. So, Tracy, hello again.
Hello again, Tracy from Daytona Beach. And just to preface my question, I'm working on my capstone with several other wonderful people that are on the this evening, and I'm kind of going in the direction of vulnerability, grace, truth, time, and how that intersects with small groups in the church and small group ministry, kind of creating a skeleton based on scientific research as opposed to what people think works based on their own opinions. So the question kind of is similar to others, is what the best way to grow vulnerability and relational trust quickly in small groups. I know functional trust, I've read research, functional trust can help initially, but in the church, you don't necessarily have that work relationship where people know each other.
Okay. One diagnostic question before I answer that will help clarify. What position are you coming into as a change maker? Are you the senior pastor, executive pastor, ministry leader, consultant, somebody with a program, bottle washer? That will make a big difference in my answer to you.
That's a good question. Initially, it would probably be as a convincing leadership to go ahead and restart a program that had failed because of how it was structured before. And then after that, in other places, it would be probably a consultant.
So you're going to have kind of a pilot with this church that's had a failure, so you can learn a lot of good lessons and then go more universal after that and replicate it and take it to scale. Good. Do you have the ear of the ministry leader? Is there a trust relationship where they're willing to listen to you?
He's my husband's boss. So, yeah.
I'm not sure that answers my question.
Yes, I do. That's true. Yes, I do. But,
good.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And is one of the main problems in the failure, as you've analyzed the variables of the failure, vulnerability, is vulnerability one of the big reasons for the failure?
The biggest reason is a lack of supervision and someone to specifically lead the program. So then people didn't have the training they needed. There wasn't a structure in place. It was just kind of fizzled out, or there were problems with.
All right. So then, why are you putting that as the one you want to learn from when a lack of vulnerability wasn't the problem, and you're trying to study vulnerability? I'm scratching my head.
I'm trying to. I believe kind of the way God works in His Word. He usually sets up a skeleton, and then based on what situation you go in, you kind of contextualize it. So the bones should be the same throughout. So that's kind of what I'm hoping to do, is find the bones and then separately talk about how to contextualize it.
And do they have within their structure, the structure that didn't work, do they have vulnerability as part of the skeleton, the framework?
I think it was just based on whatever big church minister's program they were in, and it wasn't really structured.
All right, so you're looking at this as an opportunity. They have a failure, and they're probably more teachable because they had a failure, and so it's down to the bones, and you can create it by and impose, or I would say insert your own structure, which includes vulnerability in that, and see if it works better.
Yeah.
So have it?
Yes.
Well, bully for you. That's exciting. Then let me just give you said your question was how do you do it quickly? Number one is good luck. Vulnerability is not a microwave. It's an oven. Mm-hmm. Because it involves so many what are called intrapsychic fears from ancient days in somebody, and good reasons not to be vulnerable. And as you're learning at the Institute, some people aren't vulnerable because of family of origin rigidity, family of origin condemnation, a family where people were nice but never went deep, a place where there was no comfort or attunement, blah, 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 legalism, et cetera, et cetera. So some of these people don't even know they're not vulnerable because that's how they learn. But having said that, there are things you can do to help. Let me just give you sort of a menu. I believe that people need to be taught the principles of vulnerability. Now, we have, I'm not sure which of our courses, I have a model of professional and personal vulnerability. I might have done it in one of our didactics, but we have the data's out. Scott can get it for you. About how there's a difference between the two. But I have, like, my model has I don't have it in front of me now, but I think like 5 different contexts of vulnerability, Tracy. Like it's admitting mistakes, weaknesses, patterns, some other thing, 3 or 4 or 5 like that. And so people respond when there's just a structure for that. I've got the Bible verses in that. So you teach it, right? Second thing you do is you model it. A lot of times when I'm speaking, I think I mentioned this earlier, I'll just say, you know, I had a booger in my nose here, or I was insecure here, or whatever. And people kind of relax, like, okay, this guy's not going to act like he's got his act together. There's not a big S on his chest, and they relax. So you teach it, you model it. The third thing you do is you provide skills for it, so you get practical about it. And that's why I have, like, you say this and they say that. I had that in the didactic. The fourth thing is that you get the people who are the most best advocates of that. If you got somebody like who's sitting here like this, like the grumpy old man, you know you're not going to pick on him first because he's going to be an idiot. But you pick the person who's kind of, you see them, they're warm, and you can see their eyes. When you're teaching, you say, let me ask you about that, and they'll have all kinds of things to say, and then you can, you know, I've always found that it's just look at the crowd and bring out the ones that would really respond. The next thing is make sure you talk about fear, because people are not vulnerable because of certain fears. And in psychology, one of the principles we always learned in shrink school was you can never address the issue until you address the fear first. So I say, what's the scariest things about vulnerability? You'll get a slew of answers: rejection, embarrassment, shame, failure, blah, blah, blah. And now people are starting to relax. And then you give them homework assignments and say, well, come back and we'll teach it again. And what you find out, and I'm big on the rule of thirds, a third of the people are going to go, Tracy, that's the most transformative thing I've seen in my life. I want more of that. How do we, our church needs this. Can we make you the senior pastor? Oh, you know, you'll be the next Billy Graham of vulnerability, because they just get it. God says, and Jesus says, you know, bless those who hunger and thirst, for they shall be filled. Second third are kind of like, this is good stuff. They're not hair on fire, but they're like, I get it, it's valuable, I'm in. Then you got a third that are just kind of wingnuts. And why can't we just get back to the Word here? Is this about the Word? And don't people just need the Bible? Funny story. You know, I do a radio show. And I did it yesterday, and there was a good friend of mine who's the best Christian psychiatrist, or one of the top 3 best Christian psychiatrists I've ever met. I've been working with him 30 years. He's just awesome. He believes in the character model that you're trained with. He's also great on meds, and he's a really, really mature Christian. He's an elder in his church. So he's on the show. And so we always announce when he's there, hey, we got a med guy here, because, you know, it's always fun to find this. So Susie from somebody calls. How can we help you, Susie? She goes, so Dr. Okamoto, are you a doctor of medicine? Yes, I am. I have my MD, and I also believe in the model that John teaches, and I also prescribe medication. She goes, well, that's really interesting, because why can't people understand that most of these problems can be solved by just reading the Word and praying? Why do we have to bow to the high priesthood of psychiatry? Not a vulnerable response.
Exactly.
So we talked about why the Bible does teach those things. But my point is, there are going to be those people like her. She's just uninformed at best and crazy at worst. Don't spend all your time on those, Tracy. Spend your time on the hair on fire, secondarily on the ones that are responding, and you'll build it in.
Okay, great. I'm already doing this some with the women, and they're responding, so.
Good to start with women first. That'll lead you to deal with us men, and us men we have EQ problems, but we're getting better. So don't give up on us.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Rebecca, hi. You're kind of green and not in silent, so still can't hear you. Is there a microphone icon? Now, we know we heard you earlier, so we know something's working. Now, is there some button that you pushed with question to Wayne that you aren't pushing with question here? Because we know it worked 30 minutes ago. Connect my audio. Is connect my audio somewhere there?
We'll move on to Jeff and come back to while she.
All right, we're going to come back to you,
Can
Rebecca.
you hear me now?
Just stay on there. Oh, yes. What'd you do?
I pressed buttons that I already pushed. I'm not sure what was with that. Okay. I'm Rebecca.
Glad you're here.
I'm still in Kansas. I didn't go anywhere.
Okay.
So my question.
How can we help?
My question is about transcendence and limits. Transcendence is really cool because you get to take your small little part and be part of something much, much bigger than you are. And that's really inspiring and exciting. Until your little bit and everybody else's little bits just aren't enough. And the problem is way too big. And even with time, it's still too big. And it just gets massively discouraging and unfair and sad, and the consequences are great, and it's just discouraging. So how do you deal with even our best is too little?
Well, number one, I'm sorry. It sounds discouraging. Oh, we just lost Rebecca's video. Do we still have you on audio, Rebecca?
I'm still here.
Okay. We've lost you on video, but we can talk. Can you give us context for this?
Yeah, I do church worker wellness stuff, congregational care work.
Mhm.
And probably in the
Right.
last 18 months, in the church body that I'm a part of, we've had 3 that I know of, church workers who've had moral failures that have included, that have necessitated police involvement. How about that? So,
Oh, the serious stuff. This is very disturbing.
yeah. And so I've been doing the work for about 12, 13 years. And I mean, you're talking about an overall cultural problem. You're talking about an overall, I mean, it's system issues. I come from a public health background, so I look at it from the population and how the whole
You can look at it sort of on an epidemiological
yeah,
level.
I mean, that's what I am. I'm an epidemiologist. So that's what I do. And I look at that and it's like, okay, well, this is definitely where we're trending, where we're going. And I mean, it's the outcomes in every way, shape, and form are awful. And it's discouraging because like even with everybody putting in their little pieces, it's still too little. And it's discouraging.
Can I ask a couple of diagnostic questions? Have you found, since you've studied these kind of matters in the public sector, that the answers that generally speaking, things break down on a systemic level, sometimes because they don't have the information and the solutions, sometimes because they don't have the resources to drive the information and the solutions. So, have you been able to transfer what you've learned from the public sector to the church sector and go, yeah, we know what it would take, but there's not enough money, time, or people to do it? Or are you saying we yet don't know what the answers are regardless of the resource question?
I think the resources, I think the what to do is probably available, even if it's just, releasing your 80%, like we just heard. I think there's a lot that can be done. I don't think more research is needed. I think there's plenty of stuff that can be done. I think there's
the models and the answers and the systems do exist, at least in theory.
Yeah. So I think that's there. I think there's an unwillingness on multiple levels. I think there's just some unknown on different levels. I think there's a distrust, and then layer on top of that there's a resource issues. People don't have time, they don't have money, they don't have everything else.
Yeah.
So it's everything is just layered.
And who are these people that should be helping? And who would be the gatekeeper helpers that could make a difference who aren't?
Sometimes I think the church workers themselves are the gatekeepers. I think information transfer is a gatekeeper. So just kind of the overall system up above. I don't think information transfers very quickly. I don't think communication is necessarily direct. So there's just so many breakdowns.
And are you talking denomination where you're dealing with 10,000 churches, or are you talking about one church that's struggling?
No, 10,000 churches.
Or
just the whole system. The whole system. I don't think it's
And-
10,000 churches. I think it's it might be 10,000.
large numbers. Okay. So who are you going to put? You're the one that's discouraged, but are you the one who has the authority to drive this?
I would say I'm part of the team. I'm part of a team at a state level, and I'm part of a team at a national level. So
Okay.
I'm not
So-
the lead, but I'm definitely a part of the team, and I have a voice, and I'm at the table.
All right. Do you believe your team feels like you do, or do you have people that are above you that aren't driving like they should?
I think everybody sees the issue.
And does everybody have the same passion for fixing the issue that you do?
I probably have a stronger passion just because I've had some personal stories, but I think there's enough passion.
All right. So if I was meeting with your team right now, if I was consulting with your team and I said, Rebecca called me in and this is sort of, I see the situation. You're going to deal with safeguarding from moral issues because church workers who are under great pressure and there's so much shame involved and we're seeing a lot of meltdowns and this sort of thing. And would they all tell me the same thing that you're telling me? All 7 or 8 of them, let's say?
Yes.
Okay. And then if I said, so what I'm hearing from all of you guys on the team, and the only team that can really make the difference because y'all are in that unique spot, so I'm not going to go to 20 other teams. You guys are the A team. Sounds to me like what you're saying that you do know what has to happen, but either there is a lack of motivation on the church workers to implement this, or the information is not moving quickly enough, or people, that's kind of what I heard.
And there's systemic
That
distrust.
people are either resistant or that the people who are resistant to working on these issues are addressing them. Is that, and would they say, yeah, that's kind of the number one problem?
And probably systemic distrust. Yeah.
Of
The psych types, of relationship, of each other, of people in general. Just no trust.
Okay. I'm a big believer, and I'm going to take this out of the context of what you're dealing with, but just in terms of change management, I'm a big believer in going to the resistance. After you present the vision, a lot of people are going to get excited. And then a lot of people are going to say, I'm digging my heels in. I don't want to deal with this. It'll go away, or I'll pray it away. I won't think about it. Screw it. So that second level were the ones that they're the ones more at risk. I'm a big believer in digging out the fear. And so what I find on a systemic level helps is the educational piece, which you've already addressed. So you send out your mail, your social media, we're available, here's the help, here's what you can do. And then to begin to talk to the major players in those 10,000 churches and tell them, who are the people who get this? Because maybe senior pastor Sam, you don't really want to work with this, but do you have a counselor type or a Stevens ministry type? Or, I would try to put growth skills in there, Growth Skills Foundation, which Henry and I have been involved with many years. They have a lot of processing stuff that they bring into churches and say, we can deal with people who are afraid to talk about these things. But somebody, here's my point, somebody's got to, on a, not your level, but on a, like one step up from the hurting person level, somebody's got to have access to those people and say, it's not going to get better, Jim, and we know you're burning out, and we know that you're highly tempted, and we know you feel discouraged, and it's okay and it's safe. So whoever 10 levels up can speak to the guy or the gal 1 level up, that person's got to get with them and say, you got to go speak to these people in either the assembly or small groups or something like that. Somebody's got to speak to their fear. And once you have that, then you'll have another percentage say, you get it. It's okay to talk. It's confidential. I'll get the help. That's sort of the best thing I've ever been able to find at a systemic level when you have problems where so much shame, unfortunately, our faith should be the most shame-free faith, but it's not. So much shame's involved and so much resistance to change. One more thought. Be aware that you and your team might be struggling with you're coming up to some kind of inflection point of sort of adjusting your goals.
Tell me more.
It might, well, you had 3 workers burn out and there was bad stuff brought the cops in. And then maybe you had, I don't know, 100 more leave the faith because of discouragement or whatever, or leave pastor or whatever. But until your system is working, it might be okay to say this is going to happen for a while until we are more effective in our voice to the lower levels, and just give yourself some grace as a team. It might be you might have a long haul here and nothing to get discouraged about.
I can see that. I think the team is probably fine with that. I think it's for myself just being very discouraged because I know the carnage that results at multiple levels when there's as you said, there's a burnout. And so for me, it's recognizing, yeah, there's these 3 that went this far, but there's 10 more that didn't go this far, but also caused carnage. And then there's also just the families that left. So, yeah.
Stay with the research. You're sharp with research. Stay with the answers you're finding, and then I would do more studying on organizational change and the problems. And because the problems of organizational change we're finding out in the marketplace are very similar to the problems of organizational change in the church. And also remember, about a year ago, we had George Barna come down, who was like, for a long time, he was the most quoted Christian on the internet because of his research. He spoke to us at the, about three kickoffs ago, and he said, here's the statistics on something else. It wasn't burnout. It was people leaving the faith and millennials leaving the faith. And it was such a discouraging talk. And I was interviewing him, and I said, George, I'm getting clinically depressed here. Thank you for showing up. And George said, well, nobody ever told me I was Polly Sunshine. He said, however, let me tell you about the concept of the remnant. And he explained in the Old Testament how there was always a faithful remnant when everything was going to hell in a handbasket. And everybody I ever talked to after that said, I got so much help from that. I don't have to be God and fix our freaking culture, which is crazy. I've got to be the faithful remnant. And it might be good to kind of insert that when that discouragement hits you, Rebecca, that you're being faithful.
Thank you.
Okay. Yeah. Jeff, hello, man.
Hi, John. I'm talking to you from Iowa tonight. And my question is regarding how to evaluate effective volunteer teams. So staff teams, I understand, using the 4 C's. I'm wondering, is there any tweaks to that when you're working with volunteers in the church, say church committees or church teams, that can make them more effective? Or do those transfer?
You mean, is there a difference between how you would apply the 4 C's to a volunteer team versus a paid staff kind of a thing? Is that the?
Yeah.
Yeah. I get asked this a lot because when I do some of my consulting with ministries, that's a big deal. It's like, how do you fire somebody who's a volunteer? What do you do? I'm going to demote you. Oh, well. And often in churches, you get people who are they love the Lord, but they're just flaky as hedgehogs. I mean, they're just, they get late, they just make excuses, and they sleep in, and I mean, they just don't have that kind of, there's all carrot and no whip, right?
Right.
And so what I'll tell the church is volunteer ministries are great. Believe in them. And most of the church is volunteer. But you have to have the same standards in that third area of clarity. Here's what, in our child care ministry, where you got to be, I don't know, playing basketball with the kids or changing diapers or whatever you're doing, got to be here, 20 minutes early, and here's the responsibilities, and here's the areas, and you report to this person, and here's the protocols, and here's what you got to have done, and here's the way you teach the Bible lesson, and blah, blah, blah. And then somebody's got to, in that structure, be the person they're accountable to on the team to say, and that person, generally speaking, you or whoever, is kind of walking around making sure everything gets done when there's 10, 15 volunteers. And this could be evangelism, it could be childcare, it could be the bell choir. But they'll walk around, and then they're the ones that, when you have the meeting, then they're the ones that say, Sam, I noticed that, you had a great time hanging out with the kids, but you never talked about the Bible. And so you do what you would do in a paid staff, and you say, great job here. I don't use the term failure or weakness a whole lot with that group because we're getting so shame-based. I'll use, here's a delta. I like the use delta because it's kind of a cool word. And here's a delta for you. I want you to make sure you teach the Bible. But you've been here long enough to know I'm not a one-time guy on a correction because I believe that the Bible says it's a glory to a person to overlook an offense. I'm a three-time guy. We're supposed to overlook an offense, but not overlook a pattern. And the third time you have to tell Sam, this is really a problem. And we've talked about it before, and Sam has excuse or whatever. And you say, hey, I love you, but fourth time we probably it's not going to be working out for us. Now, here's what happens, and this is where churches kind of like either get it or they don't get it. They'll go, but what are we going to do? Because if we go down to we need to have 20 people on the child care thing, and now we'll have 14 because these people didn't make these reasonable standards. And I say this, yes, and let the market take care of itself. Mm-hmm. Do you know what's going to happen, Jeff? When those parents show up and they say, oh, sorry, you'll have to take him in the cry room or let them scream in the main assembly because not enough volunteers. Who are those people going to gripe to? They're going to gripe to the senior pastor and write a bunch of notes about how this is not a friendly church. And that senior pastor is going to come down and say, what's going on? And you say, here's what happened. And then you say, you can either pay for somebody or you can put a push on from the pulpit on how much we need this. And now you've got an advocate because the pastor felt the pain of the misbehavior. Don't enable volunteers because they're not paid. You've got to have quality services for a quality church.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
All right, buddy. Good talking to you. Scott, hello.
And Scott Mang, Phoenix, Arizona.
And you have not left either since the last question.
I have not. No, sir. Still here. It's beautiful. Beautiful now.
Okay,
70
man.
degrees. Living the dream. And my question has to do with where did this position of CEO or executive leadership, when did it come into play? Maybe from a historical context. And is this the best way, or is there a better way, just in your opinion? And here's where I'm coming from. So I've had the opportunity to be in executive roles, and most of those have been in churches. But now I'm a worker bee in a corporation, and the workers on the bottom of the totem pole, they do the majority of the work. They do all the grunt work. They do the work that nobody wants to do. They got to punch in and punch out.
Sure.
And their work is monitored and critiqued. And then you've got the people on the other side of the chain who got the primo parking spots and make tons of money. And most of what they do is on a relational level. And it seems a little off. And is this model just the reality of corporations in the context of like that, this is just the way it has to be, or is there a better way?
Let me make sure. You mind if I ask a couple of clarifying questions, Scott? So is the concern you have the disparity of benefits to the C-suite versus the people who are in the lower ranks? Is that the main issue?
I think so. And maybe for me, it's just a lack of understanding of I mean, because again, the executive roles that I've had have been for, fairly small churches. So, I think that's different than when you get into corporate America. But I understand that there's a weight that leaders carry and there's decisions that have to be made. But it almost seems like the position when you get to that role of that height and as an executive in a large organization, it seems like it's more of a face than it is a recognition of the reality of what people actually do beneath you. And so I just don't know if that's just maybe my situation, the company that I work for. There's a lot of
Can I keep clarifying here? Because I thought we were starting with why the big disparity, and now it sounds like that's not your question. Your question is more, are these people really doing anything to bring value? I just want to answer.
I think that's it. I honestly have a hard time looking at CEOs and really wondering what value they're bringing. It just seems like it's an act.
You ever been around a good one?
Maybe not.
Dude, you have a sucky sample is what you've got. There is some phenomenal, very rich, uber successful CEOs who are bringing incredible value. You just didn't have the opportunity of being around them. I have a model of the roles of the CEO. Have you had any classwork in that yet? It's a 5-role model.
I'm only in my 3rd class. I don't think yet.
Let me look it up for you. Then I won't reinvent the wheel for you. Let's see. Content. Okay, here it is. Content leadership. Roles of the CEO. 6 roles. Guard the mission, message the vision, drive the strategy, support the culture, cross-pollinate, and develop leaders. Now, I don't have time to go into that. I have a whole training on that. But none of those involve doing IT, coming up with the marketing strategy, meeting everybody every day. It's stuff that nobody else is doing that only this person, this man or woman can uniquely do. That's why I designed it this way. And so it looks like they're doing nothing sometimes. Sometimes the guy goes and plays golf with a guy in Santa Barbara and comes home with a $10 million deal. That's not just a guy who's drinking wine and just screwing around, right? That would be the cross-pollination I'm talking about. He or she's cross-pollinating other places. Driving the strategy. He doesn't create the strategy, or she doesn't, but they bring the smart people around that do that. So it's often kind of deceptive because you go, they're just sitting there driving, their Lamborghini, but they find the places to put the strokes in that make that company go scale. So, you know what I would do if I were you? By the way, I don't know your question of the history. It's probably somewhere around the IBM days, but I know the students here are really smart. Somebody's going to say, "Oh, John, no, they found the CEO in 1400 in Afghanistan. You're an idiot." So I don't know. It's everything kind of started with IBM, but it could be nothing. But get online and just wiki great CEOs. It'll give you kind of a different viewpoint from. You've got 2 perspectives. One is in the church where there's a limited amount of resource, and then the other is the idiots who are just kind of, pillaging, which they're bad guys, but there's some others that really bring value. It'd be a fun study for you. That's your capstone study right there, Scott.
Perfect.
Capstone study is Redeeming the Great CEO by Scott.
Let's do it.
All right, man.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
You bet. Hey, Daniel.
Hey, Dr. Townsend, how are you?
I'm good, sir.
Good. I'm in Knoxville, Tennessee, and just have a quick question for you. What is one of your favorite exercises to use with a small team to build relational trust?
I think we're kind of past the trust fall. I mean, that's been done for 50 years or so.
Yep.
What I found is that it has to be sort of in stages, because you can't start off being vulnerable if there's not relationship in the first place. So I start off with an exercise of mutual affirmations. What do you appreciate about this person? And just very simple, just have them, spend 10 minutes and write down something, or 5 minutes, just write down something they like about that person. That's not just kind of like, cliches, but something about their character, the stuff you're studying. You're a hard worker, you really reach out, you go the extra mile, you're honest about problems, you're the truth teller. And they've got to say it, and they've also got to give an example. And then they go around and do that. And then the second exercise, now this is building again, like I said, it's a sequence. The second one is what in our group makes it hard to open up. Remember, you hit the fear before you hit the need, like I was talking about Rebecca. So that's why people would say, well, it might be because we could be a culture of fear. They're not talking about their own stuff there, but that's okay. Or it's because we're also working so hard that we don't want to admit problems. Okay. Well, I know a guy that left because he opened up and he's not here anymore, but okay. And so you process this. Let's talk about how to make this better. The third stage is where you say, then I would like for you guys to take a small risk, not a big risk, but a small risk, which is to say, not only you've already said what you like about each other, but the other would be something about you that you want help on. And then you, as the Daniel, as the filter, say, now remember, we're going to be meeting again in another week or a month, and I don't want to hear somebody saying, "Hey, I was open," and then people use that, or people like distance from me, or they were weird with me, because I'm going to really bust that, and I'm going to confront that as not being cultural. And so come up not with a big risk, but a small risk, and you got to be very warm and engaging about it, and have somebody take a risk. Always pick your first person who seems to be more open first, and that person might say, "Yeah, I think you guys are really smart, and I'm not that smart, and I get worried about that." And you have somebody else say, "What do you think?" You can look at process group, and that person says, "Hey, I think you're smart too, and I appreciate it. Let me know." Blah blah blah. Now you're on the way, but you don't know. Remember, it's grace, truth, and time. You don't know until a week passes to know if they're going to be okay with it. Right. But that's how you build it.
Cool. That's really helpful. Thank you.
Hey, buddy. Good luck. Mishi.
Hello, my friend. How are you?
I am good. Yourself?
Well, thank you. Great to see you at the concert the other night. Love those boys.
Rock and roll.
That's right. Listen, my question is about succession. So I work for a company where the owner has owned it for over 40 years. And he's having a hard time letting go, is the bottom line. So he and his wife own it. They have what they've called an executive team on which I sit. We're a 4-member team, and the idea, quote unquote, is that we would be the next gen to run the company. Boy, he is holding tightly onto the reins. And I'm just wondering if you have any tips or tricks. It's a little bit, I'm in a difficult spot. I oversee the human resources of the company and the cultural piece, and so I can kind of speak into it a little bit, but I feel like we have been pushed into this corner of middle management in a no-win situation. We're now kind of this messenger piece between the owners and the rest of the team. So just wonder if you have any tips or tricks that might help us bring him comfort in turning over the reins.
Sure. You said that there is an active move. I mean, the conversation is happening about succession now. He said, "You guys are my successors," right?
There's nothing official. We haven't signed any papers, but it's why we built the executive team. In the past 3 years, he's gone from being a principal firm and then a flat organization to then having a COO, and now there's basically a COO, a CIO, me, and another guy.
He's the owner, he's the owner, so he's not accountable to anybody. I mean, he's sort of accountable because he trusts you guys, but he calls all the shots.
Right.
Nobody else has got his ear. If anybody's got his ear, it's you guys, right?
Yes, and to throw a slight wrench, his wife is there, and she fits onto our team as well, and she is not a wallflower. She's a force to be reckoned with. So she defends him. She also can sometimes be a translator to him. He's a very kind of closed and private man. Doesn't wear isn't very vulnerable, doesn't like uncomfortable confrontational conversations. But she's
Yeah, somebody, you or somebody needs to be the person that says, I'm concerned and scared
yeah,
because this thing that you built, if anything happened to you, God forbid, we don't have a plan.
right. We call it the beer truck conversation. Like if you get hit by a beer truck.
Right. So have y'all had that conversation and say, we don't have a plan and we're scared this whole thing's just going to fall apart? Have you said that?
We know what we would do with clients. We don't know. I don't believe we have.
I'm not asking that.
Yeah.
I'm not asking
We
that.
don't have a plan for what.
Have you said to Sam, the founder,
Yeah.
we don't have a plan for succession. We're afraid this thing is going to be really devastated and in jeopardy if we don't have a plan. Has anybody had that eyeball to eyeball with him?
Not to my knowledge, not that directly.
Well, in cases like this, you sort of have to be, in a nice way, kind of a velvet hammer and say, we're terrified.
Yeah.
And we're not going to keep having conversations ad nauseum, ad infinitum about this. Sam, when can we have a plan and what's the first step?
Yeah.
Now, if you did that, what would he do?
He would say, you're right. We do need a plan.
And then you said, I know. And I asked you two questions, Sam. Let me repeat it. Can we have one? And then my second question, Sam, was, when's the first step?
Yeah.
I'm holding him to a time commitment now.
That's good.
So what would he say to that?
That's good. He would say,
if I was him, I would say, well, I don't know, but what is the first step?
Yeah.
And then you say, well, the first step is to have a meeting solely about succession that we want you there for, and we're going to spend 2 hours on what that means, and then we're going to divide it into a sequence of steps and a timeline.
Yeah.
So our suggestion to you, Sam, would be, when can we have a 2-hour meeting that's not about anything else but succession, and then the end result, the outcome of that 2 hours is a plan with timelines and champions.
Yeah.
If you said that to Sam,
that's great.
What do you think he would do with it?
I don't think he'd like it, but I can see where I feel like we now have a bit of a majority rules situation, which is a good thing. That's in our favor. So we didn't have that for a long time, and now we do.
Why wouldn't he like it? I mean, he says, he sounds ambivalent. Like on one hand, I don't want the beer truck to happen, but on the other hand, I like keeping my hands in. Is he just ambivalent?
You know what it is? It's that he is our chief, like our big game hunter. So his real passion is sales and clients. He doesn't work on the business very much. He works, right? In the business, on the business. He does the work of the business. He doesn't like working on the business. So he's an avoider.
He failed EMIT.
Yeah.
All right. Then you just got to say, hey, we'll make you a consultant at large if you want, or you can go do the sales part, but we need to do X, Y, Z, and we'll preserve the things you love. Because a lot of times a founder will say, I just want to go in and dink around with IT, or I love to walk around and make relationships. And you say, great, you are the, let's call it, sometimes people call it an executive consultant.
Yeah.
And then they do that, but they're out of the decision making.
Yeah.
So you or somebody's got to say, that's the meeting, that's the outcome.
You're right.
And we love you all.
You're right. That's great. That's great. Thank you.
Okay, Misha.
Thank you.
You bet. Todd. Our last call for the day, and you talked about risk with Wayne Williams. It was a good question. What's up, man?
Thank you. Still in Atlanta, Georgia. I currently work for a church, and yesterday we were in a team meeting talking about community groups and numbers for community groups, and someone mentioned that they felt like our community group numbers weren't what they could be because a lot of the people who come to our church actually travel during the week for work. And I had the thought, would it be possible to do some sort of like online community group type model or something like that? And trying to do some of that with our process group and trying to figure that out. Do you think that would even work? And if so, do you have any suggestions on how to form community online like that during the week and then everybody's back together on Sunday?
I'm totally into it. I think that's the future. People travel. And now resolution and fidelity and the way the sound and feeling people's emotions is so good. I mean, nothing's better than face-to-face, but it's darn good. Did you know that I did a process group with Townsend Institute students?
Do I know that you do a process group with Townsend students?
That I did. I did a pilot process group session with TI students with Greg Macon. Did you know about that about a year ago?
Online?
Uh-huh.
I did not know that.
Yeah, because I've been studying this for like 8 years, because when can we do a real process group and people really get tight because it's been so limiting? Okay, so Greg and I mapped it out. We got 8 TI students around the country. They were cohorts with each other, which was an advantage. They already had the attachment. And we did process group, Todd. I mean, it wasn't even community group, which is, your Bible verse and then pray for each other and share how it's going. This was the deep stuff, and this was hard to do. Community group is a lot easier. I mean, we did role plays, and somebody left their mother's craziness and supported each other and gave each other relational nutrients. And Greg and I were like, oh my gosh, thank you, God. Watching people connect back and forth online. There's limitations, and I would go to Greg because he has the limit. He and I mapped it out, like certain size monitors, certain number of people. You got to have limitations. Just the logistics. I'm a big believer. I love it, and I believe in it, and he's kind of my partner there.
Okay, so that's more for details, logistics, tips, and tricks. That's a Greg or a Scott question.
It's Scott's brother Greg, who's also on our faculty.
Okay, that's more of a Greg question. He was one of my process group leaders at.
Okay, you get it. He's great, but the thing about everything else is, okay, we're gonna, we're finding out a lot of you guys traveling, your messages out, so we're going to do an online community group. And those of you who are venturesome and like the tech world, we found that we get great results. So, 9 of you can be in it, or whoever, Greg will tell you. And so sign up, and then we'll find out what time zones everybody's at, and we'll map out, and then here's your Bible verse, and here's your prayer request time, and here's your sharing time. And then you'll learn a lot from it, and then call me and Greg up and tell us how it went, because we want to keep working on this.
Cool. Good to hear.
All right, buddy. All right. Scotty.
Okay, buddy.
Who used to do this?
Tonight.
Who is this? There was some. Was it John? Was it
Carson?
It wasn't No, it was Letterman.
Oh,
Letterman.
Yes.
Best question, or not best question, but most applicably helpful question of the night. What a bunch of good. Scott, I'm so proud of these students. They're smart. They're learning this stuff.
They are.
Rocking and rolling. Or a bad person. Just a bad person.
Just had to find that just for you, buddy. It's either that or I
feel the love,
sing.
man.
We don't want that.
All right, let's see. Oh, these are great questions. Oh, that was a great question. They're just so good. People are going to change the world, man.
Kind of a catchy tune, isn't it?
You will not distract me from my task. Sorry, guys. I mean, it's just hard to do. It's really good stuff here. this is so weird. It was a short question, but I think it was the most generally helpful. Is Scott Mang's question about the CEO thing? It's really good to clarify that because a person's work is not seen sometimes, or because it's seen as more background, or because they're more of a social face, that we go, well, then you're not adding value. And it's really good to clarify that value comes by what the net outcome of your behavior is. And I thought it was a very interesting and helpful conversation for leadership in general. So, Scott,
Okay, buddy.
all yours, man.
Send me stuff.
So that's it, right? And you'll tell me how everybody related to the covers later
Yeah,
time in the debrief.
I'll have Clark send you the. They have a lot of comments this time.
Thank you. Thanks, guys. Thanks for being a team. We won't do this for another year or two when our next book
Oh, I thought
comes
you
out.
have one.
Look at all these faces. What? Christmas? No. Merry Chris, you look so sleepy. Here's Merry Chris.
So we ended up having like 65 tonight, which is huge. So
Yeah. Scott and I just love meeting with you on this meeting. It's one of the best things we do, and we just love you. Your questions are so sophisticated now, and you're so informed about business and leadership as well as character. And we love it that you're showing up with these. Please keep showing up. Have been blown away by how you guys are showing up, and you're not showing up out of obligation. We know that we're showing up because of value. So we'll keep delivering. You guys keep showing up.
okay, you guys have a good night. We'll see you soon.
Lead
They
well.
are. Take care. And then there were 3. See you later, Barry. See you, friend. Take care, buddy. I'll just email this thing to myself.